Conservation and commerce aren't always a happy bedfellows, but on the Isle of Islay, where bird watching and whisky drinking are the two main draws for visitors, compromises have had to be made. 40 years ago this month, a well-known environmentalist landed on the island to protest against a peat bog disruption in the name of whisky production. And as Andreas Wolf reports, the rest is history.
The distillers say they need to take out more of the peat to keep their industry going, but the conservationists fear that'll mean draining the bog.
40 years ago this month, the well-known environmental campaigner, the late Professor David Bellamy, visited the island of Islay. Together with a group from Friends of the Earth, he tried to stop the building of a road into the bog, where distilleries are harvesting the peat which brought Islay whisky to fame.
Here we have a rare species on a world scale, which we are pledged to a whole series of international agreements actually to look after, and that's why it's important. If we don't look after this, we have our noses rubbed well and truly, in the dirt of international conservation.
And the peat bogs of Islay are an important environmental asset in so many different ways.
The more we can protect our peatlands and restore them, the less likely that we can lose that carbon store. Not only that, they're really good for biodiversity. They support important habitats, bog habitats on top of them. They support species like green and white-fronted geese who roost there and on the islands. They also are really good at regulating our water.
But the distilleries have changed how they use peat, meaning they now harvest a lot less than they used to.
In the old days, peat was used to dry it all the way down to 4 to 5% moisture, and it was very phenolic and very cough mixture style of whisky, which wasn't particularly palatable. And then now, obviously, in the last sort of 40, 50, 60 years, peat is used just to impregnate the grains with a certain amount of peat reek, and then they dry it down with warm air.
The number of distilleries on Islay is increasing. Not long ago there used to be 8, and soon there'll be 12, and not every distillery harvests peat in the same way.
This is the traditional way. So you cut off the top layer, and then you cut your bank, and then you replace that, right? But when they do mechanical peat cutting and not taking care of the environment, that's the problem. But I think what we should have, and all distilleries should contribute to a fund, right? And we should have all peats should be cut by hand. And it should be like an apprenticeship, because it's a dying art and a dying skill, and it's intrinsically important to the history of this island.
Soon it will be autumn again, and more geese will arrive on Islay as the debate between conservation and development continues. Andreas Wolf, reporting Scotland, Islay.